Good afternoon, evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Worldwide Football. As always, I'm your host, Connor Projuelo. Here's my co-host, Rathy Rothman. And after just coming off of the Ballon d'Or video, I figured we'd do a short segment onto what also happened in the beginning of the week, which was after the West Ham United game where United lost, unsurprisingly. We now saw the revelation that Ineos has decided to sack Ten Hag. So after almost 2 years, 2.5 years of being at Manchester United, Eric Ten Hag has officially been fired. And for the replacement, while it was Ruud van Nistelrooy this past well, just yesterday, really, to put
Yeah,
it
on an interim basis.
they decided to immediately get their next manager in, which is Ruben Amorim from Sporting Lisboa, who is
Yeah.
currently having Lisbon playing extremely great football and currently first in the Portuguese league. So all we can really say is the firing, not so surprising. The immediate appointment, what the fuck?
Hmm. Yeah, and honestly, it was a bit surprising that they were able to get a hire in the middle of the season. I thought that they would have to get it would be sort of similar to when they sacked Ollie, where they would have to get an interim in for the rest of the season, then look for there in the summer. But I guess once again, it does go to show how well a team's history, how well it is able to build them because United, they, as much stick as we do give them, ultimately they still have that pull when it comes to managers coming to their club because they'll still have a lot of suitors that will want to join, even if the project may not be great. And that's what they're doing right now, trying to get Ruben Amorim, who's only 39 years old and basically the same age as Ronaldo, I believe. So, which is very interesting, both
Yep.
Portuguese. But yeah, so far he's done really well for Sporting, and he's been a really big part of their success. So I'm actually very intrigued to see how he does. Although, of course, the fair warning will be that we all thought Ten Hag would be a success at United, and turned out he was a massive, massive flop, despite the fact that he did win two trophies. But ultimately, with United, you never know. So even though first impressions are good, we think that Amorim might be the right guy. We won't know until we see how he does.
I mean, you look at the good that Ten Hag did, I guess. He did help bring in Garnacho and Kobe Manu to the team. He did bring in another left back. Unfortunately, that left back was as injury prone as Luke Shaw is, and United still find themselves without a left back at the current moment. But then there's just a lot of instances where I don't know if it's a Dutch thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to be offensive in that regard. But they just have a massive kind of ego when it comes to dealing with certain players. You have the Ronaldos,
Yeah.
you have the Sanchos, um, in that regard. And clearly, you also see a fair base of favoritism and just
Anthony.
out and just outright. Well, most of his signings were a lot of his ex-Ajax players, who many of which have done extremely terrible. Anthony is probably the biggest example as to why as that one. Um, but I mean, yeah, like you said, he did win two trophies. I think his first season definitely did show a lot more promise. The second season was like, what is happening? And
Yeah, I
then this
think
season has just been
especially
absolutely some kind of a, it's just been like a huge car crash.
yeah, I think I actually will say I liked his first season. I thought it did show a lot of progress. I mean,
Like won a
especially
trophy, he
after
made
he
top
was
four. Like he
yeah,
did
especially
fairly
after he
well.
decided to sit Harry Maguire and strip him of the captaincy. I thought that's where you would
Booted
see a lot of
Ronaldo's ass out the
movement there.
club, booted Sancho
Yeah.
out the club.
Although I will say, like, even though he did do that and it looked good, he's sort of proving Ronaldo right now in the sense. But I will say, like, there was a lot there in that first season where I thought, yeah, you could take what he did there and maybe build on it. But I remember speaking to you about this last season early on, especially up until November. I can't recall United from August to November where they put in a good performance. And even in their wins, they looked very sloppy. And that culminated in
There was just
them not
never a
even,
matter of consistency when it came to Ten
yeah.
Hag's Manchester United. Like He obviously had his clear favorites, especially when it came to McTominay when he was still there, because that was always so freaking great.
You know what's
Anthony was
weird though?
being made into the
McTominay's
team.
done well with
Veghorst
Napoli
was
now.
brought in as a replacement, which for Ronaldo, which was probably one of the dumbest things that you could do. And then the season afterwards, Rashford had hit a poor start, and who was one of United's key players. And I say key players because he's one of United's only few decent ones, and he had an absolute horrid year. You had Anthony, who was obviously a terrible signing all throughout. There was no reason for it. I don't blame Ten Hag for the Mount signing. That was clearly just more of it. That was clearly more of an Ineos signing.
Well, the Glazers technically
Glazer
because they were
signing. Yeah,
there.
sorry.
Yeah,
That was clearly more of a Glazer signing, which was absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, the Harry Maguire, which is bad. Lisandro Martinez did prove to be a decent signing from him, so I'll give
yeah.
him that. Delict is, as of right now, is not the Delict that we've seen so far. And I mean, you've seen Delict already with your team. What can you see from Delict right now, Manchester United? He seems almost like the same player, honestly.
It's literally, yeah. I mean, great defender, but the problem is that you expect a lot more out of him considering what he did with Ajax. You expect a lot more, movement with the ball. You expect him to do a lot more on his feet, but he hasn't been doing that. And that's literally what we saw, like especially last season with Bayern, where he defended really well but wasn't great on the ball. That's what we saw in his days with Juventus, where he struggled the same things as well, albeit in a much more poor system. But that's the thing. He hasn't really been able to progress from the days at Ajax
I think he's
and
kind of
from
stubborn in that regard. Like he can't really seem to move on from that, and he keeps trying to build that, but I
yeah.
think it just doesn't work in the Premier League like it did back in the Eredivisie. Like it just doesn't work. He brought in Xerxes. I don't know why he brought in Xerxes. Xerxes
Yeah, that was a big
he
question
doesn't
mark
even seem like
because
he fit for Ten Hag style of play. I don't
yeah,
know how he fits into United at the moment. You could at the moment with Amorim's team, considering he plays with two interior forwards and a striker. I'm struggling to see where Xerxes would fit into that regard. Because you could probably put in like Garnacho or Rashford there, and maybe Hoyland up top. And Hoyland as a number nine shows a lot more promise than Xerxes.
yeah, and that's why I didn't really understand that signing at all of Xerxes. It just felt like one of those where it's like Ten
It's
Hag
like
wants like
he's
a
Dutch.
Dutch player. Yeah, that's what I
Hmm
mean. He wants a Dutch player. Go get him. And he
It's
was the
also why he was
best, one
pushing
of the
for De
best
Jong for
strikers on
so
the
long.
market. Yeah, and that was the thing. You already had Hoyland in. Although he didn't have the greatest of seasons, I thought he did show quite a bit of promise as the season went along. And that's why I thought it was very odd when they decided to sign Xerxes. It's basically getting a striker controversy because you knew they weren't going to play both of them. They weren't going to start both of them at the same time. That's not how Ten Hag plays, which is why it was very odd when that happened.
And then leading up to this season, you can just absolutely see the car crash despite the signings they signed. Xerxes wasn't, he tried to fit Xerxes into the team, didn't work. The fullback, Mazarawi, hasn't been too awful, but he hasn't exactly been setting off fireworks, whether he plays
Yeah.
right or left. The whole thing about him playing as a tenor against Fenerbahce, I mean, like, what in the actual hell was going through his head? His reluctance to bring in Amad Diallo because he wanted more Anthony to really break in. And even now, because Anthony's pretty much just absolutely terrible he still has a lot of reluctance onto playing Amad Diallo. Um, just trying to make do with the Kobe Manu injury, the fact that Ugarte he's good, but he's not fantastic. And
And even he has struggled
mhm.
quite a bit, Ugarte.
I guess you could say reluctance to really change up the style of play to fit the mold as to what he has to deal with. Let's keep this in mind. Ten Hag in almost 2.5 years hasn't really had a set style of play for Manchester United. Flick
Yeah.
came in with the foundations that Xavi did kind of build on, and Flick perfected on it. And now Flick has Barca playing the best ball that they've played since Messi was there.
And I think, as much stick as we give Ten Hag, ultimately, I look right at Ineos for this because I still remember it was 3 games ago exactly. They had a meeting where they were deciding to if they were to stick with Ten Hag for the time being because results still weren't there, and so they decided to stick with them. And then in those 3 results, I believe they won one match, they drew against Fenerbahce, and then the West Ham loss, which let's be honest, was quite BS. But at the same time,
You could say
United
what you want
definitely
about
should
the
have.
referee. That's a
Yeah,
totally separate question. I mean,
yeah, but they
conversation.
definitely still should have won that because they missed quite a lot of chances, and then they
Dallo
decided to
missed
sack
on
him.
purpose just to sack Ten Hag.
Yeah, but my main thing is like not much has really changed from that meeting till now, and for whatever reason, they waited till now to sack him. I mean, I just don't get the timeline from Minios. Like, if you were planning to sack him now, you should have just sacked
And
him
again, like I said, this is
after that
Ruben
meeting.
Amorim is a promising manager, but the fact that they're putting him in a position, I mean, granted, he took this job, so I feel like he knows what he should be getting himself into. There's no doubt that the way he plays, it works well for the Portuguese league. He's a very promising manager. He really helped make Gyökeres into an absolute insane striker, and I know he's going to be on the market. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to shoot for Gyökeres to the
Yeah.
season after to really, be another striker. Maybe they get rid of either Højlund or Xerxes. Um,
Well, at the same time, you can't. I don't even think if you get Gorkias, you can't really keep either of them because, like, that's going to be your main guy going forward.
yeah, with Gyökeres and I mean, I guess it depends really. I'm not entirely sure, but clearly he wants a chance to prove himself at a bigger club. I'm not going to put too much pressure on the guy. I don't think anyone should. This is a guy who's
Yeah.
coming in with no preseason. He's a relatively young manager, freshly new to the Premier League. And I wouldn't expect this guy to, set off fireworks immediately. I mean, great if he does, especially with this dead United team. But if he at least manages to do better than what United have been doing right now. Because think about it. We've been doing this for 4 years, even technically longer than this.
Yeah.
I've seen this pattern happen with United too many times. Part of me never doesn't even want to make this because it feels like another occurrence. Oop, United sacked another manager. It only felt like yesterday when I was making the only sacked video with this man's, and now I'm doing the same thing with Ten Hag. It's like, it's like when does it end, bro?
It's literally
When
the
is
show
it
that
gonna
never
end,
ends.
Robbie?
As they say, the ride never ends.
The ride clearly never ends. We see this time and time again. So I'm not going to put too much on Ruben. He's coming in barely even mid-season at the moment, not even mid-season. So yeah, let's just see what he does, and maybe he makes United a
Yeah,
little less useless.
I will say the one thing that they do have going for them, like the Sporting to United sort of tree, as you could say. United, if they've done one thing right, they've gotten players from Sporting Lisbon, like Ronaldo, like Bruno Fernandes, and they've done well for United. So if if that's one thing going for United, then hopefully that tree continues to stay good, and
Don't put
Amorim
your
would be a
hypes up too much,
success.
mate. Ronaldo did good his first time around, not so much his second time regarding his
Yeah,
first
well,
season.
to be fair,
As
he was
for
coming
Bruno,
from Juve the second
As from
time.
Bruno, well, Bruno set off fireworks his first season, and the second season was good, and then he kind of hit some stagnant lows and highs, lows and highs. So, fair enough, I guess. I will say the way he lines up his team, he will play three in the back, which I feel like, I mean, if it's a three in the back, I feel like that would be tailor-made for someone the likes of De Ligt or Maguire. Depends on who he chooses to use. Midfield will definitely have to do a lot of work though, so definitely going to have to look in the market for another midfielder because no way in hell are you going to trust Casemiro and Eriksson to run that midfield for 90 straight minutes. One's on his last legs and one barely has a functioning heart. The front line should be more exciting because you have, hey, man, I love Eriksson. Don't get it twisted, bro. I
Yeah,
can make that joke. I had heart issues myself.
that is
Um,
true. Yeah,
with an interior forward role, I feel like Rashford could potentially thrive in there because clearly he's not a touchline winger. He's not a forward. Play him in a role where maybe he's a bit more free, make more direct runs, Rafinha-esque. He could potentially do better. And let's get it right. Rashford this season so far, as bad as the front line is, has probably been the best one in that front line.
yeah, he has. It's the only one that's really been looks like some sort of spark. Honestly, for being honest, because the strikers haven't looked good, and if you go to most of the right sides, really been an influx of guys, and the only consistent one really is when you look at the left is
Because
Rashford.
there's no right. You have Rashford and Garnacho both technically thrive on the left. United still don't have any good right winger. I mean, you could put Diallo there, but that's the only one. That's it.
Yeah, but even then, he's a project at the moment. Like you can't
Yeah.
really play him every game.
So good fucking luck, and I guess we'll see how United do, man. Amorim, you're in for a long. I hope he God knows what he's getting himself into. So
Yeah.
I'll be paying attention because his first game is against Chelsea, so
Oh,
this should be fun
no,
this
you know how
Sunday.
that usually works.
New
It's like,
manager bounce, yeah, I know. New
yeah,
manager
not
bounce. I wouldn't be
only new
shocked.
manager bounce, but usually United Chelsea always ends 1-1.
That's true, but last season it ended 4-3, and it was actually fun.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah,
So I would hopefully
one game
expect
where
some.
it was fun.
Actually, not even last season, and none of the games ended 1-1. You had McTominay clutch up at the with 2 goals to win a game against Chelsea in their first fixture.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but I
But
remember
that is a
always
common stereotype with United Chelsea games.
always
And
ends
even new
1-1.
manager bounce. Maresca's still technically new, but whatever. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining us once again. Absolute pleasure to start bringing back these videos to you guys. 2 in 1 day. I'm gonna go play some ball. Am I gonna play like Prime Lewandowski or Prime Darwin Nunez? We shall find out. The
Or for
answer
Juan
is written
Torres.
on my shirt, which you can't see because my camera's fucked up. But yeah. Yep. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the football and good night.